Hello, everyone. Welcome to our homesteading series we have here today from Porcupine Real Estate. I'm joined by Chad from Life and Liberty Farm. Chad, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, great. Hi, everyone. This is Chad Mills. So I live in Francestown. My wife and I escaped Massachusetts about 5 years ago. We bought a little cabin in the woods. A couple weeks later, decided to move up here and escape, and we built a farm. And so now this is our sixth year farming, raising sheep, goats, chickens, basically striving towards self-reliance with a little homestead.
Great. So I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Dominic DeMaria. I'm an agent with Porcupine Real Estate. And we are here today to talk about homesteading. And the first question that I'd like to go over with is, what does homesteading mean to you, Chad?
Yeah, for us, really, it was kind of a journey. My wife discovered she had some kind of intestinal and dietary challenges with, like IBS or something. Tried to figure out what it was. Discovered it was Crohn's disease. Started researching that, realizing that we really had no idea what was in our food, and kind of really strive to be more self-reliant, capture those skills that our grandparents used to have, and just sort of grow healthy food and know how our food was raised and what went in it. You are what you eat, and your food is what it eats. So really kind of striving towards that. And it's been quite a journey. And, if we go out to eat somewhere, not really knowing the quality of the food you get, we usually feel that later because we just don't eat processed stuff anymore. So that for us really is sort of capturing that lifestyle, revisiting all those skills that have been lost in basically just a generation. I mean, my parents grew up that way when they were little. Their parents had gardens and root cellars, and they canned, and they went to the local farmer to get their meat, or they raised their own chickens in their garage. And we've just really gotten away from that. So trying to recapture that, growing the healthy food, and not being, or at least striving to be, not so dependent on this fragile and broken system that we live in. And over the last several years, as we've been teaching classes on sort of homesteading skills and raising and processing your own chickens, the experience of 2020 really kind of woke some people up to the fragileness of things. And you couldn't always just go to the grocery store and get your meat where no animals are killed. And a lot of people bought rabbits and chicks from us in 2020 and came and took classes with us to see and learn what it takes to actually get food from a live animal to the table.
Yeah, I think the wake-up call of 2020, the supply chain issues, was definitely a catalyst for a lot of folks to get interested in homesteading.
Absolutely. Yep.
So the next question would be, what attracted you in the first place to homesteading?
Well, I mean, I can think back, probably 20 years ago when we first moved into suburbia, when more than that now, 25, 26 years ago, when we moved into suburbia and got married and had our kids. And I always kind of strived for having some land where I could, hunt and fish, or have a cabin or a getaway, and work on food plots for animals and that kind of thing. And it never really came to fruition until about 10 years ago, when we really started shifting our focus. Our kids were growing up, and we started looking for a place. Couldn't really find a place that fit our needs. We wanted sort of remote, but yet it's half an hour for us to get to basically anything from where we live here in Francestown. So we're remote. We live on a dirt road. There's a mile and a half of woods in any direction around us. But we can get to a Home Depot or a Lowe's or a Walmart or a grocery store or a hospital, within a half an hour. So that was kind of sort of our goal. What was the specific question you asked again?
Well, just what was the key thing that attracted you to homesteading? Like, why was it homesteading and not like being a prepper specifically, or something like that?
Yeah, no, certainly. So the real wake-up call for that, we adopted a couple of our kids from Ukraine. And in 2006, when we adopted our daughter, she is from a little village about 3 hours northwest of Kiev. And if you could be blindfolded and transported there, and you took your mask off back in 2006, you'd feel like you were in the 1700s. I mean, this is modern day, not a third world country, and there were horse-drawn carts, and nobody has yards, groomed yards. They have flower beds and gardens and root cellars and fruit trees, and they milk a goat every day, and they have outhouses, and they have wells with buckets and ropes with the weight on one end, and you pull the rope to get the water out of the well. I mean, that's the way it was in 2006. And for us, it was kind of like, man, we are just so living in this alternate reality where half the world or more lives more along the lines of those people, and we're so spoiled over here with it, we really had no clue. And in 2010, it really sort of woke us up when we had an ice storm and we lost power for a whole week and couldn't go to the grocery store, couldn't take a shower. We were sending the kids to my parents that were half an hour away so that they could do those things. And that was sort of my real wake-up call to homesteading. And, you know, we really started getting a garden going and trying to learn skills, and we learned canning, and we got some chickens. And man, chickens are the gateway animal to full-blown farm. And we had 10 chickens in 2015, and we brought them up here. In 2018 is when we actually moved into our little cabin here in Francestown. And to give you an idea of growth here, 6 years later, spring of 2023, we hatched 200 chicks. So it's a lot of growth, and you know, we raise freezers with all the food and as much vegetables as we can grow. We have a greenhouse, and then we sell the extra. And we actually have been selling at farmers markets, and we've created this local market for rabbit and rooster and goat sausage and these things that people just didn't have access to. And at the same time, you know, like along the lines of teaching this chicken class, I'm trying to wake people up to the fragileness of the system, and also the perils of the system in terms of what are you actually eating? How did that chicken live? What did it eat? And I always tell people, you're spending your $12 a dozen for cage-free eggs. I got news for you. They just live in a bigger cage.
So you mentioned the chicken class. What is that all about?
Yeah, so we actually started that back in 2019, took a little break through 2020. Obviously, 2021, we started to kind of ramp it up again. And then last year, so we offered it twice last year. We're offering it 3 times this year. So this Saturday, and then probably Labor Day weekend on batch got delayed a couple of weeks, so we're probably going to have to process them on Labor Day weekend. But so basically for $55, you can come and take a class. We spend about an hour and a half, sort of a classroom type walking around tour about how you actually take a little chick that's a little cute yellow puff ball and raise it into a healthy chicken that you can put on the table. And, you know, raising them is more important than processing them. And it's one thing, I could show you how to process a chicken. You know, you slit its throat in a cone and you scald it and you pluck it and gut it and put it in a bag. But that's not the most important part. Obviously, you want to do that humanely and kind of safe food handling and make sure it's clean and handled properly as food. But the 8 weeks leading up to that are far more important. How you raise the chicken, how does it eat, how does it live? You know, encourage it to be more like a chicken, because the Cornish chickens that we buy at the store that we're used to having like legs, thighs, breasts, like big plump sort of little turkeys, they're kind of a fragile bird, and you put them down with food and water and they'll just sit right there, eat, drink until they're 15 pounds and they die of a heart attack. So you've got to handle them a certain way and encourage them to behave more like chickens. So when you come to the class, we spend about an hour and a half. I give you a course manual. We walk through the whole process, and then we go hands-on. And I tell people, look, we're going to be processing asterisk killing a chicken in this class. This is what it takes to get food on the table. And it's amazing because a lot of these people they want to do it. They've never maybe even killed a fish or something, but we put that chicken in the cone. We humanely slit its throat. It bleeds out. It goes into a scalder to loosen the feathers. And then you drop it in the plucker, and in 14 seconds, it's cartoon naked chicken comes out of the plucker, and people literally gasp like, it's food. Oh my God, it's food. They were horrified at the blood and this chicken that was alive a few minutes ago, but now all of a sudden it's food. And it just really shows you how detached we are from where food comes from and what it takes. I mean, I hear stories about, you know, city kids coming out onto these farm experiences, and they don't even know that a carrot comes out of the ground. So we just really striving for this educational kind of reversion almost, right? Like trying to deprogram people that, hey, you know, food doesn't actually come from the grocery store. Meat doesn't actually come wrapped in cellophane from the grocery store.
I think a lot of people disconnect from it because we've made it so easy as a society to disconnect from where you're
right.
So it's a very important thing.
Absolutely.
And then, so the last question would be, how much planning did you do before you started with the homesteading process?
So it's funny, if we go back to where I talked about coming back from Ukraine in 2006 or 7, my daughter having grown up where her grandparents lived through the Holodomor and the Soviet invasion and the Nazi invasion of Ukraine and all that. Her grandparents were homesteader prepper people, and so she grew up kind of helping them with the gardens and things. So that was sort of our start. We're like, okay, well, we need to do this, and this will be great for her. So we started a garden, and didn't really have aspirations or thinking that 10 years later we would be in full-blown homestead farm mode, but it just kind of progressed. And then when we decided we were really looking for a piece of land, it wasn't even for a homestead really. It was, we kind of had a kind of set of criteria for what we wanted. It was just to be sort of a temporary place we go on the weekends, but it had to be a place that we didn't have to tear down a historic old house because it was a money pit or that kind of thing. And we just sort of lucked into this property, but it did take us a solid 5 years to find this property that we bought. And utilizing search engines from real estate companies, and had kind of towns identified and a criteria of size of land. And then we really just lucked out that this cabin property had old pasture on it that was obviously completely overgrown for 100 years, and it took several years to clear the land and clear the pasture. And then bringing our chickens up here, and then I just sort of jumped in. And I think I've talked to you before. One of the things I say all the time is don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough. And if you keep waiting for the exact perfect property, or you keep waiting for the exact perfect budget to put together your chicken coop or your goat fencing or whatever, then you may never get there. So, I jumped right in with both feet. My wife was probably ready to kill me at some point because we were taking on animals, because I wanted to try ducks and turkeys, and we got some more chickens, and we found a rooster, and we got 4 goats and 6 sheep and a couple of rams. And now here we are, 2023. We had 47 lambs born this year and 45 baby goats born this year. So we jump right in, and anytime my wife gets a little overwhelmed, we got pigs last year. We processed pigs, but one was a girl. So with the uncertain times we live in, I held on to the girl, and we did AI and got her pregnant in February. So we had piglets born Memorial Day. So we had piglets this year. We're getting ready to sell all of them. We're going to hang on to a couple of them and raise them and process them in January, February. So I'm constantly sort of trying new things and learning, but my out is always that I can easily unload these animals as food. Everybody can be eaten. Everybody has a purpose. If it doesn't work out, if it's a little too much work, we've been trying quail for the last several years, had a lot of struggles. We found a local animal sanctuary place, and they raise a lot of animals to feed their animals, and we donated all the quail to them. So that was sort of my out. Like, the quail weren't really working. It was taking too much time. There wasn't a real return on it. And so we donated all the quail, and they're actually breeding the quail now so that they can have quail eggs and raise quail for meat to feed their animals. Tough decisions on the farm. We had a couple of mature doe goats that have had delivery challenges of the last couple of years in terms of having babies or struggling to get pregnant. And we created such a market for goat sausage here locally that we completely sold out of goat sausage the first 2 weekends. So we made the decision and processed. It was crazy. No, it's the most consumed meat in the world, but not here in America. And sure. I had free samples on toothpicks. Hey, you want to try a free sample of goat sausage? And people would be like, goat sausage, really? I'm like, yeah, it's the most consumed meat in the world. And they would come in and they would try it, and they'd say, are you selling that right? Do you have that right here? Because I need to buy that. And nine out of 10 people that tried it bought it right there on the spot. So we made the decision. We didn't have any, younger goats to go to market that were ready, and we needed the goat meat. So we made the decision to cull those 2 mature does, and we got 150 pounds of goat Greek sausage out of those 2 animals. So they served their purpose. They had a great life, and that's
so
kind of life on a farm.
Where do you get your resources to learn how to do all this stuff? Because you obviously didn't come from a background of
right.
So what are you using for a resource?
So from about 2010 to 2016, I bought as many books as I could, and I watched a lot of YouTube. Sort of the go-to people on YouTube, whether it's Justin Rhodes or Joel Salatin or Greg Judy or Mark Shepard, like all those guys. I watched them every day for years. And it was funny because then 2016, 17, when we bought this property, like I haven't watched any of them since then because I don't have time because now I'm doing it. But they certainly inspired me, and I learned a lot, and they would talk about books that helped shape them. And so I bought those books, and admittedly, you know, I haven't read all those books cover to cover. They're sort of resources. I look at them from time to time, but I'm too busy. There's not enough hours in the day, and my aspirations far exceed my daily allotted time.
So if you had to sum it up and just say to somebody who is interested in getting into homesteading here in New Hampshire, would you just tell them what would be your one sentence phrase to like kind of get them to jump in and start it up?
Do the best you can with what you got where you're at. That's a guy from Viking Preparedness that I follow online says that all the time. If you're on a half-acre homestead or a half-acre suburban lot, start a garden. Get a few chickens, start growing some food, get some bees, do something, and it's totally addictive. Like the whole gateway animal kind of thing. Like once you start growing some food and you eat a tomato that you grew yourself that tastes absolutely nothing like a tomato that came from the store. I mean, the benefit, the value in that, like the pride, whatever that is, like it's amazing. So just get started with something, aspire to do more. You know, maybe it involves finding some bigger land that you can put a camper on and plant a bunch of fruit trees, and then maybe someday you can build a tiny home or drop a mobile home on there while you build a house, or like just do it basically.
Jump in. Good way
Jump in.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thanks to Chad from Life and Liberty Farms. Chad, where can they find you?
So we do have a Facebook page. It's Life and Liberty Farm New Hampshire, I think it is. And we do have Instagram as well, which is Life and Liberty Farm _NH.
Right, and we'll put that all in the description. Again, my name is Dominic. I work for Porcupine Real Estate. And if you guys have any homesteading questions or needs, feel free to reach out to myself or Chad. I'd love to help you find that perfect piece of property here in New Hampshire. Thanks
Awesome.
again. Have a great day.
Thanks, Dominic.